America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the regular school committee meeting of Monday, November 13th, 2017. This is your notice that this meeting is being electronically recorded. We are going to start tonight with our spotlight event for Attleboro High School, and I'll call up Principal Bill Rooney and his team. Welcome.
Thank you for having us tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is a very big week for us, and we're pleased to be able to start it with you. And we are going to focus on obviously the wonderful things that go on at the high school. And this is a precursor for our annual celebration of all things Blue Pride on Thursday night. We have our Blue Pride Night open house, and this year we've added a new dimension to Blue Pride Night by having our student showcase on the same night as well. Joined tonight by Mr. Gorman, our assistant principal for curriculum and supervision, Ms. Ann Montagano, our director of CTE, and a little bit later in our presentation we're going to bring forth representatives from our science department, and the stars of the show will be our students. So, all the work that we do at the high school is driven by the mission and the vision of the district. We realize all the time and effort that was put into the Envisioning 2020 strategic plan a few years ago, and it has served us very well in terms of guiding the work that all of our teams at the high school within the departments, as well as our leadership team and administrative team, do on a daily basis to serve our students. So now we're at the point where the mission and the vision have become so real to us and become such a part of the fabric of what we do on a daily basis, that now we're at the point where we're focusing on developing and delivering those relevant experiences for our students in order to be able to engage them, challenge them, and inspire them. And in our partnership with MCIEA, which I'll explain in a little bit greater depth, and then also ask Mr. Gorman to do so as well, we're looking to take it to the next level and enact that vision to be able to present these relevant experiences to authentic audiences. And that's the new level of Blue Pride Night that will take place this Thursday. I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to thank our events manager, Katie Rigo, who takes all the time to put that evening together, and I'm really excited about that opportunity for our 7th and 8th grade families, but also for anyone in the community, including you, who would like to join us that night. This year at the high school is the year of the student voice. We feel that in many ways we are the last stop for the opportunity for our students to have someone check on them on a daily basis. They're either going to go to colleges, career, or the military, and they are going to be responsible for many of the things, including self-advocacy. And so we feel that at the high school, if we can incorporate as much of their voice and their choice in their learning, we feel that it makes it more personal, and it makes them better prepared as they move on to the next level. And this is following a very successful year last year, which was billed as the year of the student experience. As I mentioned, a lot of the work that we're doing to provide relevant opportunities for our students is based on our partnership with the Massachusetts Consortium for Innovative Education Assessment. The relationship with MCIEA started a year ago. We're actually having 2 cohorts now. Mr. Gorman's going to take the opportunity to explain that in greater depth. But I will say that, as principal, we appreciate the relationship that we have with MCIEA. We definitely appreciate the leadership that's provided by our central office team to be able to have this as a vital aspect of the teaching and learning that goes on at the building. So I'm going to take the opportunity to turn it over to Mr. Gorman.
Thank you. One of the things that excites us about our partnership with MCIA is how it aligns nicely with some of the initiatives that we started even before we partnered with MCIA. And that is looking at non-traditional methods of assessment, which we call performance assessments. And our emphasis on performance assessments has really aligned with many of the things that we have already in place in the district. So it's nice to see that all these different areas are all kind of coalescing together in like one unified step forward. So as Mr. Rooney mentioned with the mission statement, last year we focused on the year of the student experience. This year is the year of student voice, and there's that logical progression there where when last year we focused on learning activities, this year the focus is on how we're assessing the students. So there is a continuum there that's exciting, and how we're assessing students now leads us to really interesting conversations and an opportunity to align with things like the student exit outcomes and the district learning priorities. So performance assessments really allow us to kind of start to explore in depth exit outcomes like imagination and curiosity and critical thinking and collaboration and problem solving. And these are all things that we're really excited about, while layering on top of that some of the district learning priorities like experiential learning and personalization of learning experiences. So this is work that we feel really passionate about at the high school. And of course, this aligns with one of our district goals too, that explicitly states that we're going to work on developing authentic assessments. So just to walk you through a little bit of a timeline on where we've been and where we're going, we started our first work with a group of 6 teachers in the fall of 2016 from 3 different disciplines. And we went to a number of workshops facilitated by MCIA representatives off campus throughout that year. And not only did we attend off-campus workshops, but we also were partnered and paired with a coach from MCIA to give us some guidance, and he would come into the on-campus and we would just have like working sessions on our work related to performance assessments. We were working with particular tools and devices and types of validation strategies to really see if our work was assessing the kids on the things that we cared most about. So that is when we first started to dip our big toe into the world of performance assessments. Now we're all wet. So in the late spring of 2017, we expanded that initial cohort of 6, and we took on 2 more cohorts in really almost tripling the amount of teachers involved. Ms. Montagano will tell us about CTE's involvement in the second cohort, and we also had a second cohort just expanding the network of teachers involved. Those teachers that were in the second cohort got their training over the summer, and that training is continuing periodically throughout the year. Same with the coaching experiences. What we've done is, based on our work with the first cohort and our instructional leadership team, we have started to create targeted professional development around performance assessments, introducing them to the whole staff. So you can see kind of the tiered approach we've taken to this. So why performance assessments? A couple different reasons. First one there is we recognize, I think, as a society now that different students learn in different ways, and if different students learn in different ways, we should provide them different opportunities to assess their learning. That is maybe a little bit divorced from a traditional, say, multiple choice test that students might have. The great thing about performance assessments is they're exclusively student-centered. Oftentimes, students are picking the topics that they want to explore because performance assessments are really, if you think about the exit outcomes, those are separate from particular content areas, but you can use content that the students are interested in to do those in-depth explorations. By their very nature, performance assessments are multi-step processes, which again, there is some, intangible skills there too about perseverance, follow through, just, following a logical continuum, attention to detail, things like that. Certainly the real-world application, this allows us to really help prepare students for college, career, and even civic responsibilities that they'll have in the near future. Lastly, one of the real exciting things about performance assessments, and this is where you really will start to see students really become one with their work, and that's with the opportunity for authentic audiences. So oftentimes when you give students a stage to showcase their learning in front of more than just their teacher or class, whether it's a set of outsiders coming in, you really see them rise to the occasion. And I think that's a really important opportunity that we provide as many students as possible. Put a couple links up there on what students say, but I think more importantly, we have some students here themselves that will share with us what they have to say about performance assessments. But because we're on a tiered approach, we thought we would start with Ms. Montagano, who will talk about how performance assessments are in process, and then some of the students will show you a completed performance assessment.
So CTE just came on board with MCIEA in summer of 2017. So we're in the very, very early stages of our work with them. However, this was something, the project that I decided to tackle through the workshops with my team was something that I had already decided to start anyway, and it actually fits quite well. So when students, what I want to look at more closely going forward are our own exit outcomes in the CTE programs. And when a student exits a CTE program and receives the Certificate of Occupational Proficiency, what I want that to really represent is truly what it says. So in order to really examine whether or not students are actually prepared the way that we think they are and hope they are, we need stronger performance assessments. So this is where our relationship with MCIEA comes in. We have in place one of the requirements for CTE kids is the senior portfolio. Right now it's basically a compilation of their accomplishments throughout their program, and it is a demonstration of their skills in the programs. However, what I'd like it to be is more of a culminating activity where it not only showcases a skill set through a demonstration of things that they've already accomplished, but also a project where they more demonstrate that they can apply those skills in a real world problem. And so that's one of the things that we're tackling. The other thing is because that portfolio houses the demonstration of the skills and the attainment of competencies for each individual program, what I want to do is examine the performance assessments that the kids are, that the kids are doing all the way through all of the programs. So what the team is doing, the CTE team is doing, is really looking at a way to effectively assess the kids in the programs through stronger, more effective performance assessments. And so we're going to be doing some professional development with the CTE staff in January to get this whole thing started. So it's exciting for us. It was something that we needed to tackle and have one of the most important things is that students understand from beginning to end what their strengths and areas of growth are, and so through stronger performance assessments, that will help them do that and grow and experience, I think, greater growth as they go through the programs, and they'll be stronger when they exit.
Mr. Quinn, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just, can you kind of give us a landscape or an overview of what assessment looks like now in the CTE program? Because from my mindset, a lot of the work that you're doing there should be authentic. So I would almost think that we're at an advantage having a program that could almost model it for the academic disciplines where it's a little bit harder when you come from that mindset. Is it just one of those things where we've been doing it, but now we're just making it a little bit more not standardized, but assessing with rubrics? Or can you just kind of give us, where we are now versus where we hope to be?
Sure. I think that we're actually there. I mean, we're doing this. So, and it's anything from, a test to a rubric, to in some cases even a panel review.
Yep.
We do have advisors come in and help assess the kids in terms of where they are. But there's a specific set of competencies that comes down from the frameworks for each program. So everything is kind of really specifically outlined in terms of the skill sets that we're delivering to the kids. So what I want to make sure is that even though we have everything in place, we're already performance-based. We're kind of ahead of the curve there. We're doing the work, we're living out the work that the high school wants to bring into other areas. But what I really want to have happen is I want to just examine the assessments, whatever they may be, whether it's an exam or whether it's a rubric, to make sure that it really is identifying whether or not the students are attaining those skills in a way that we can actually call them proficient. And if they're not, which I think it's okay to say, like say in a level 1 student, how do we get them there? So maybe we need to chunk out the material a little bit more and the assessments a little more.
One of the things that we, one of the trainings that we received when we were doing some of the MCIA work was around validation protocols and looking at assessments and just kind of having the, taking that leap and just passing off your assessment to somebody, an outsider who might not be familiar with your content, and have them ask you the questions like, is this doing what it's intended to do? Those types of things. In those types of conversations kind of facilitate almost kind of informal and organic, like professional learning communities where you're like sitting down with 4 or 5 people. And one of the best experiences that we had this year was having, a math teacher, a science teacher, a social studies teacher, an English teacher, all working together on a math assessment. And we were all able to bring in different experiences and perspectives. And that was something that I think if it was done just in a silo, maybe wouldn't have been as enriching for ultimately the students. So, speaking of students, I think it's that time.
So tonight, I want to express my appreciation to Ms. Altieri of our science department, also Mr. Casey Weinstein, who's the chair of the science department, who have brought some of their students, Alyssa, Janie, Abby, and Reagan, and they are we're going to turn the table over to them, and they are going to show us a completed performance assessment on Newton cars.
Can we start it on that end and
Sure.
and demonstrate on the
You guys
table?
want to sit, you can sit as well.
You want to do that on this side? Yeah, that's the photo. Okay. Yeah, so this is a project that we have started this year. It's a new project in physics that we've developed this year, along with the project-based learning initiative. I've asked the kids to design and build a Newton car, I'm calling it a Newton car, out of household materials that runs all on its own energy. And Jane's going to demonstrate how it does that, right? And explain a little bit about what's going on here.
Okay, so basically we took a styrofoam lid and put like meat skewers through it and hot glued bottle caps of CDs. So when the balloon runs out of air, it will push the car forward. And kind of, we wanted to see how far we could actually get it, so we had 2 different designs. The first one did not work out very well at all. It went about 1 meter, but this one in our final test, it went 11.75 meters. But yeah, I'm not going to blow it up as much, but.
Go for it.
Good choice of color balloon,
Okay, so we talked about earlier how it works better on the tile.
It does. It works a lot better on the tile.
Part of this whole project is designing something and then taking that design and making modifications based on your trial and error. And the other half of this project is the poster part. And this is where they're applying all of the skills that they, all the skills in physics equations that they've learned from doing the project. So they've learned things about linear motion, they've learned about momentum, and they've done all the calculations that go along with all those aspects of the physics curriculum. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about how this was meaningful to you?
So this project was meaningful for because it allows us to learn from our mistakes. So this was not the original design of our car. We originally had a smaller but like more dense block of styrofoam, and it wasn't working the way we had it set up. We didn't have a very secure setup for our wheels. It wasn't working, but because we discovered that, we learned from our mistakes and we were able to make this version, which works much better. And it also helps us to apply the laws that we learned in real life, because it's one thing to learn them in a textbook, because you can learn the definitions, but when you actually turn it into something, it shows you how they really work in real life and how they're applied on everyday objects.
Like she was just saying, like, before, when we just learned about them in class, I couldn't really, like, it was easier to grasp the concepts of Newton's laws using a real-life model than just, like, writing it down on paper. It shows, like, how it actually works and the forces in real life. So that helps with the learning experience.
And so this was a good performance assessment, and we all 4 of us agreed on this, mainly because of how interactive it was. The project allowed us to be able to establish new ideas and tactics while using trial and error, like Reagan just explained, and it made the whole project very engaging. It also helped us to use and understand more about the subject compared to simply taking a test or writing an essay. This is because we used all the necessary materials in terms of what we need to know, like curriculum-wise, which helped us create a physical example of things we have been learning in this physics class. Like, for example, all four of us agreed that when you actually make something and you're using the curriculum, it's easier to remember on a big test like a final, like, and go back and remember what you did compared to just trying to pick pieces of this multiple choice question or how you wrote this in your essay.
And finally, this project gave us a voice because it let us have full creative control and allowed us to make our own mistakes. It also let us think independently and let our personality show through our project, because no project in the class looked exactly like another. They were all different. Some were powered by balloons, some were powered by rubber bands. They were all different and kind of let us all shine through in different ways.
Thank you, ladies.
Any
Nice
questions
job.
or comments, Mr. Quinn?
Yeah, I'm curious about the change in the design. Can you walk me through your original thinking on the project, and then how you came up and what you were thinking about to, change the design of the car and obviously get a little bit of lighter styrofoam, but I'm really curious about your thinking process and how you came to that design.
Well, in the beginning, we were thinking, okay, how can we make something go? That was our first process, thought process. Was like, so yes, we have to find something to go, but how do we make it go? And so then we started thinking about a rocket and how the air will come out back and then the rocket goes forward. And then we thought of a balloon and placing the balloon on the back of the object, let the air go backwards, so then the object can go forward.
In our original design, we didn't really have a good thing to keep the wheels on. So what we did was we stuck a bobby pin into the styrofoam, put on the CD, and then tied a balloon to it to make sure it stayed on, and it didn't. So the wheels kept falling off, and it wouldn't go very far because of the amount of friction on between the balloon and the CD.
Our wheels were very unstable at first, though. So then we discovered that your wheels were wobbling. They would completely affect the way it was going. So we had the design groups all set up, but one of our wheels was wobbly or was almost unattached, so the car just went in a circle and it didn't do anything. And remember, we tried to find hollow styrofoam. We tried to make our own styrofoam lighter, thinking maybe that would help it go faster.
Just start scooping out the inside of it.
So, not everybody used a balloon. That was your original idea?
Not everyone used it, but a couple groups did. Other groups used rubber band, they would wind it back and then let go and kind of go forward.
We have an example here of a different design. This is a design using wood and a little elastic band that you wind back one of the wheels, and it'll go just from the energy from the elastic band. So that's another design that they came up with in that class.
So we give you another week to redesign the car. What would you change?
Maybe reattach the wheels or make sure there's less friction between the styrofoam and the skewer. Because we had put little straw pieces in there to make sure it rolled better. I bet we could find something better than straws.
Make sure it goes completely straight, because you can't always guarantee that it's going to go. It's not really moving to the left or moving to the right.
Yeah, sometimes that would happen and I would hit a cabinet or something.
And what's awesome about performance assessments is that you continually, you never fail. You made mistakes, but you continue to fail forward. There's no, I'm going to speak for you here, but so correct me if I'm wrong, but when you made a mistake, did you feel really down, or just it was get your wheels turning?
It just, whenever we made a mistake, we learned from it. And so, how the CDs, how the placement, we were okay, now we just have to figure out a different way to hold them. And they helped us, making mistakes helped us get better.
Yeah, we had a couple mistakes on the project that if we hadn't discovered, the project would not have worked. So on our original block of styrofoam, the wheels were too close, so they would rub against each other and it wouldn't move. We also had a different type of balloon at first, and they were more decorative balloons as opposed to this kind. Those were different actual balloons.
They were tinier and thinner.
Some were really long.
Those are the original ones we were using, and they were not good.
Final question I'll ask. So has it made you rethink the idea of mistakes? I know that when I was in class that, when you made a mistake, it was kind of ooh, that's something you tried to avoid versus something that it sounds like you were learning from your mistakes rather than it's a definition of who I am.
Yeah, because we had all thought of a solid kind of idea, and when it didn't work out, we thought, hey, it doesn't go the distance it's supposed to, we should probably rethink this and kind of figure it out from there, take step by step, figure out what works and what doesn't.
Awesome.
Just want to add real quick too that what they're doing isn't just authentic assessment, it's authentic science. I mean, the discovery of penicillin was a complete and utter mistake. So that's how science is done, and so they're really modeling what we want as a department at the high school in terms of what we want kids to be doing. It was exciting to walk through the lab and watch these kids working on this. I had the opportunity to do that and to see them excited and collaborating. I mean, it basically encompassed all the things that we value at the high school. And so it's really exciting that they have an opportunity here to show you what they're doing. It's authentic science, not just assessment.
Mr. Larson, do you have a question?
No, I just had a comment. I'm incredibly impressed because the four of you, if you remember this for the rest of your life, will always be successful because you've learned how to reevaluate and go forward. And if you can do that, no matter what you want to do in life, you're going to be a success. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I echo what Mr. Larson and Mr. Quinn said. It was a great presentation, a great project. I'm happy to see that type of work being done at the high school. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just in closing, we have one more slide, and at the risk of regurgitating most of what Mr. Quinn's questions were centered on, thank you. Proves that he read the slideshow before he got here. We do realize that we have an accountability to the state through our standardized testing assessments through MCAS. But as I mentioned in my opening, the leadership that we have from central office, the leadership that we have from your committee, has allowed us as a school to learn that we can also take risks. And I'm proud to see that has trickled down to the leadership of the department, to our teachers, and now to the students and the projects that they're working on. We realize that in some respects, performance-based assessments and standardized assessments seem vastly different. But as this slide indicates, we realize that they both give us opportunities to show our students that there are ways that they can improve. And so, as Mr. Gorman mentioned, we have a very powerful ILT, instructional leadership team at the high school, very talented and passionate educators that come together on a regular basis to plan professional development. We receive guidance from the Teaching and Learning Lab and the Professional Growth Lab councils, that are led by the central office in partnership with the Attleboro Education Association. So we feel very fortunate that we're working very hard to try to strike a balance between realizing how important our accountability is in terms of the reflection on the high school and the reflection on the district, but that we have the that we have the guidance and that we have the trust of the central office administration and the school committee to be able to venture outside that box and provide performance assessments and as we said, the year of the student voice for our students to be as well prepared as possible when they graduate. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Rainier's team? Thank you all for coming in, and thank you for the presentation. Okay, Superintendent Sawyer, you're up with your goals for the year.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I begin, I would just like to comment on the wonderful presentation we just enjoyed. It takes a real act of courage on the part of our educators to step outside of hundreds of years of tradition and to try educating in this way. For people who are concerned about this particular approach to teaching, some of the points that are sometimes raised is that you know, the time that those kids spent worrying about things like the size and shape of their styrofoam or the best way to get the axle to spin, right? Those things aren't necessarily directly tied to the Newtonian laws that they were studying, right? There's time being spent on these projects in which there's an aspect to it that isn't exactly the thing that's going to be on the MCAS test, to put it frankly. And so teachers have to, and we have teachers all across the district at all levels endeavoring in these kinds of things now, and to make the decision to give up the precious time that we have so little of in preparing kids for the accountability measures that we're being, you know, measured against, to give it up to things like that so that you can have those kinds of learning experiences really is a brave act on the part of our teachers. And I'm very proud that they're trusting us and believing us that we want them to do this, because as you saw, we believe that the time invested in these things has a greater payoff, right? Sure, you know, I'll speak to, you know, my learning experience as a student, teachers felt like, oh, there's too much to cover. I can't give up time for those kinds of activities because I've got to make sure I get to the last chapter, right? And the problem with that approach is that you can rush kids through content, but if you don't give them those kinds of learning experiences, it's not going to actually stick. Mm-hmm. And we're much more focused on what kids are going to remember in the long run and much less concerned about what they can produce on the test at the end of the unit or at the end of the year. It's much more about what sticks with them for a lifetime. And we believe that these kinds of experiences are really, really going to make a difference. And so I think that's pretty exciting stuff. And it fits right into my goals. You know, I have to be honest with you. Writing goals as the superintendent I find to be challenging. It's an exercise that I'm still trying to get my head around, because ultimately I feel like I'm responsible and accountable for everything. So, you know, how do you pick 3 things out of a list of, you know, depending on how you cut it up, hundreds or thousands of things? One way to look at it is I've got 6,000 goals that show up every day, right? And we try to think of them that way. But that being said, I think it is important to try to identify the big picture and to communicate not only to the school committee who supervises me directly, but to the community of educators that central office leads in terms of what the focus is. And so these goals are my attempt to really make clear the 3 big things that we're focused on this year. And they should surprise no one. The first one's really about our educational goals. You know, we have a lot of things that we're throwing at people. You know, every time there's a presentation, you get hit with about 15 different acronyms. And it has occurred to us that not only do we want to promote the kinds of learning experiences that we believe make a difference, and we also want to sort of throw open the gates and let people to try new things and to create a innovative culture among our educators. But it's important that we organize all of this into a cohesive framework so that we can communicate to the educators what it is that we expect. So that there's clarity, because again, there's a little bit of apprehension about changing traditional ways that have, again, been the way people have been teaching for well over a century. So I think it's really important that we help make it clear what we're talking about, show how the various things work together and aren't working at cross purposes, and also produce materials that will help teachers to see that big picture. And then once we can do that, it's also important that we communicate that to the community and to the families that we serve so that they understand what we're trying to do too, because some of these things are a little bit different, and we want to be transparent about what we're doing. So that's fundamentally the first goal. The second goal is straight community engagement. We're very excited to be furthering this work of all the things that are in our strategic plan. Our community engagement work is the one that's farthest from what we are comfortable with and I would say good at. I think this community, as we've said on many occasions, is very lucky to enjoy the benefits of such a great school system with such fantastic educators. I think Attleboro knows a thing or two about how to teach kids. In terms of how to be an active member in the community and to break down the barriers that exist between the community and the schools, I mean, we have really good intentions there, but how best to do it, how to create lasting systems that support that work, that's something that we need to work on, and that's why we're so excited about the grant that we're involved in with Nellie Mae and some of the other things that we're doing. And so my second goal is really centered on that work and the need to create a plan for our community engagement and also to increase our partnerships, most notably with underrepresented voices. And then finally, I don't know if you've heard, but we're talking about building a new high school, and I feel a personal responsibility to do my best to support that effort in every possible way. And so I propose that as my third goal. So these are the goals, and I've listed some measures, and I welcome any feedback and hope that it matches what you would expect.
I have a question on goal number 2.
Yes.
The community engagement goal. Do you have any specific plans in place right now? I know you mentioned the grant, but is there anything that you've started or done at this point or plan to be doing to reach that goal?
The grant is the chief initiative there, and it's also the way we're going to organize all the other things that we're doing that are related to this. Again, what's exciting about that that grant is that the money is really paying for expert advice and help to help us to think through what we need to do, because it is an area in which there's just really no obvious model to how is this done. I get the sense that lots of school districts aren't good at this. It's not traditionally how we thought of schools, so they're going to help us to put together a plan on how to better engage the community.
Mr. Quinn?
First, I want to comment on the district improvement goal. I think the choice of making the high school is a really ambitious one that I think a lot of superintendents would not take on, because there's a large part of that is not within your control. So I applaud you, and you've already been doing this already, but reaching out and doing yeoman's work in terms of getting the presentation out, particularly to new segments of the community. So I think that this is a really successful vote on March 6th. I think that's a big ambitious goal. The question that I do have is just in terms of the metrics, and not that you want to quantify everything, but looking at the professional practice goal, what would success look like in terms of new partnerships? One, and then for the student learning goal, what would success or not success look like for the metrics for the student learning goal?
So with the partnerships, I mean, the founding of new partnerships, formal relationships with organizations in the community that we don't currently have. We could quantify, although, one of the problems there is, in some ways it's easier, it might be easier to meet a number by going for the wrong kinds of partners and just to pad the numbers rather than put the effort into fostering relationships with maybe some more meaningful ones. So I didn't include a particular number because I thought there's a sort of a qualitative aspect of that. But ultimately, we have partnerships. We're very proud of the partnership we have with the YMCA, with the library, with United Way. I mean, there are various groups that we're actively working with. Now we need to go out and not just pat ourselves on the back, but we need more. And I would hope that at the end of the year I'll be able to report back to you on those new partnerships, and ultimately it'll be the job of the committee to decide whether I've made enough progress or not.
Yeah, from my standpoint, and I know you're already doing it, I think it's like an and or, where it's one really in-depth partnership where there's a lot of new opportunities that maybe a really cohesive partner that could be wide-reaching, but, even if, we got three organizations that now have a presence in the school, I think kind of crystallizing what that might look like, would be helpful. And then for the student learning goal, so cohesive framework of instructional materials, can you elaborate just a little bit on what those are?
Well, I mean, so what the framework is or what the initiatives are? So the idea here is to create a framework so that we can show how the various things. So when we're talking PBIS or UDL or performance-based assessment, PBA, I mean, like, we need to show how that alphabet soup fits together, and we should be able to show you a picture of that. So the framework would be a document that outlines how these things work together and fit together.
And then supplementing that would be like the educator reference materials underneath that framework. And then finally, success would be direct communication to the parents of that framework.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That makes it much more concrete. I appreciate it.
Mrs. Dorris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I feel for you. You have so much that you are responsible for. Putting it down to 3 goals is a difficult task. But I appreciate that instead of seeing 20 different goals with various things like I'm going to send 10 teachers to some conference, that's not a real goal. These are real goals, and I appreciate the 3 that you've picked. One's focused on our students. The ones on our our community engagement, and the other on what I would say the majority of those involved in our school district right now realize is the right thing for our students and a very important thing. I appreciate that you are taking ownership of all of that, but especially the last one, the high school effort. But it is a team effort. I think it's safe to say the majority of us are definitely behind you, with you, to the side of you when it comes to this. Hopefully we get to March 6th and it is indeed a successful vote, but in case it doesn't go that way, that doesn't necessarily mean that you failed it by any means. The fact is the effort that you are obviously going to put into this and have already started to is what I really care about and what I appreciate. One question I do have is, can you, in your own words, just explain what better ensure for the professional practice goal, better ensure that stakeholder voices are appropriately reflective of the community we serve? Can you explain what that means to you?
So, the students in the Attleboro Public Schools are over 40% high needs. And when we meet with community representatives, the various demographics that are sort of inherent in that high needs population are not included in those groups that we work with. And so we need to do a better job of reaching out to the communities that are among us, that are part of Attleboro, but have not built the inroads with the schools. So that we can, work with them to better understand their needs, and so that we can, in the end, better serve their students.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Look forward to hearing about your progress and successful achievement of your goals this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, do we need a motion to approve the goals?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'd make a motion to approve Superintendent Sawyer's goals for the 2017-2018 school year.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. All right, moving on. The next item on our business agenda is our standing MSBA AHS project update. There's not anything really new to report. We continue to work out the finer details of the plans and also work with the state to come to a final number as to the split of what the state would propose, what the state would pay and what the city would pay. Those discussions continue to be ongoing. The plan is for the SBC to submit the plan to the MSBA in December. The MSBA does not have a meeting in January, so it would be taking up and hopefully approving the plan in February, which would keep us on track for our March vote, as we've been discussing all along. So none of that has changed. It's just a lot of back and forth as we work on the finer points of the plan. Like with everything, oftentimes when you get to the end, getting those final decisions and points reached is oftentimes what takes the most work. So that's what's being done now. But we're every indication that we'll still meet that goal. Any other points, Superintendent Sawyer, that you'd add to that? No.
You haven't.
And then, we continue to make presentations across the city to school and other community groups, and we'll continue to do so for the next few weeks. Take a brief hiatus for the holidays, and then in January and February, we have a pretty full slate of community meetings that'll be circulated online. So that'll conclude the, Mr. Storrs.
Could you speak to the upcoming presentation? I know Coelho is coming up Wednesday.
Coelho is Wednesday, and Wamsutta is tomorrow night. And then we have a couple of private presentations to local groups that aren't open to the public. And then we also have a meeting here on December 13th in conjunction with our facilities subcommittee meeting that will include a tour of the building that will be open to the public. And it'll be followed by 2 subsequent meetings here at the high school in January and February that will include tours for members of the public who are interested.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? All right, moving forward, we have minutes from our meeting of December 30th, 2017. The minutes were circulated with your packet. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda, motion to approve the overnight international field trip proposal for 82 middle school students to travel to Washington, D.C. from May 31st, 2018 through June 2nd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Storrs?
I just want to say, again, it's great to see this back, second year in a row, from what I understand, and all 3 of our middle schools participating, so I think this is a great time.
Yeah, I agree. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the donation of $780 to the Best Buddies program at AHS from Mercer Cares.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Scales?
Just a shout out to the Walter family for spearheading the bake sale, which resulted in this money.
Thank you for that recognition to them, Mrs. Scales. Any other comments, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That concludes our consent agenda. We'll move on to our subcommittee reports for the night. We'll start, Mrs. Scales, with you in policy and personnel.
Thank you. The first item discussed was policy DFA, which is the Golden Age Pass. Ms. Jansen addressed the subcommittee on this policy, which offers some free admission to school activities and discounts to adult education classes to senior citizens. Some minor edits were made. I have a motion to approve DFA as presented.
So moved.
Second.
DFDA, right?
I missed a D. DFDA, sorry. Any comments?
Just to amend a typo, we will not be providing a senior
Yes.
gold car. It's a senior gold card, just in case for clarification.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate that.
the
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Found that one.
Next, we started reviewing Section G, which covers personnel. Many of the changes are minor and address updates due to legal changes. Changes in practice are simply updating language to reflect more modern needs. Policy GA personnel policy goals was aligned with mask, but edited to better reflect Attleboro practices. A motion to approve GA as presented.
So moved.
Second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Policy GBA, equal employment opportunity, will align with mask, and a motion to approve GBA as presented.
So moved.
Second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Policy GBD, school committee staff communications, is redundant and is covered under policy BHC. Mask only has the BHC policy. It is recommended that we remove GBD from the policy binder and update policy BHC to align with mask. So a motion is to approve policy BHC as presented and to remove GBD from the binder.
So moved.
Second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Policy GBEA, staff ethics, was updated to reflect changes in conflict laws and to align with mask. Motion to approve GBEA as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. GBEB, staff conduct was reviewed and was updated to align with mask with changes to reflect Attleboro practices. The HR Council has also reviewed and will incorporate into the employee handbook. Motion to approve policy GBEB as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. GBEBC, gifts to and solicitations by staff was changed to align with mask. Motion to approve GBEBC as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. GBEC, drug-free workplace policy, and GBED, tobacco use on school property by staff members prohibited, did not have any changes. So we just made a change to the date. GBI, staff participation in political activities, has minor changes to be aligned with mask. Motion to approve GBI as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. GBK, staff complaints and grievances, had updated language to align with mask. It will be included in employee handbooks and included in contracts. Motion to approve GBK as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. GCBB, employment of principals, was updated to also align with mask. Motion to approve GCBB as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We once again reviewed homeschooling policy, IHBG, and the 3 exhibits that go with it. The subcommittee still had more questions that the administration will look into, so the policy was tabled for now. Policy IMG, service animals, was also tabled as we await information from the nurse coordinator on the DPH publication guidelines for animals in schools or on school grounds. The administration made updates to anti-bullying policy JICFB based on our recommendations from legal counsel. The subcommittee had additional edits, and the policy was tabled and will be brought back once clarifications have been reviewed and confirmed. Next, we reviewed the bullying prevention and intervention plan. Some edits were made. But a motion now to approve the bullying prevention and intervention plan is presented.
So moved.
Second.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Lastly, Mr. Geddes provided an update on the progress of the district survey. The goal is to distribute the survey before Thanksgiving break. The next meeting will be held on December 4th, and that is my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Scales.
Yeah.
What was that date again, December 4th?
December 4th.
Mr. Larson, Finance and Budget?
Finance and Budget met on November 8th. Mr. Furtado took us through the monthly budget reports. The only thing of concern there that we discussed is we've had the addition need for some wheelchair transportation. So where we thought we were going to be fine in the transportation budget, we are very much now in a very tight situation with transportation, and I knew Mr. Tyler would love to hear that. He has such a fondness for transportation, so. But we will continue to monitor that over the course of the year, and if there's something that we need to do between now and the end of the year, we'll bring it forward to the committee. We had a brief MSBA update from Mr. Furtado. We also reviewed the capital projects, list that's published with the city. From there, we had a further discussion about the roofs on the middle schools that we tried to get fixed last year over at Brennan and Wamsutta, but we did not get accepted into the state program. The thought was that we're going to be reapplying this year. Again, you all know the process. We have to wait for them to open up the time to apply. We have to apply, the city council has to approve it, and then the mayor has to send it forward to the state. Because again, these roofs still need to be done, and there's substantial money that would take to do those.
What's the timeline for our application?
We have to wait for the open
We don't
to
know.
happen, and
We don't know when that will be.
Usually late winter, early spring.
Okay.
we did discuss some of the other buildings in the district. You know, if in fact the high school project goes forward, there's programs that are going to be brought back into the new building. But between now and then, we have been told that BICO will be out of the Finberg School by the end of January at this point. So we started a discussion about the future of the Finberg School from a district point of view, and so we'll be continuing those discussions going forward. There are no formal decisions made at that point, at this point so far. We have a meeting next month. I don't have the date right in front of me, but it'll be the first part of December, and that's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Next, we have open forum. This is the time when members of the public may address the school committee. Open forum is not a time for committee members to engage in a dialogue with members of the public. Guidelines for open forum are available to you. Please know that we are interested in what you have to say, but we cannot respond without background information on your issue. Please come forward to the podium and state your name and address if you would like to address the committee at open forum. All right, that will close open forum. And that is all we have on the agenda tonight, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. What happened to the podium?
I believe that was one of Dave Murphy's final gestures.
Is the best way to stop